Joined by Martin Davis, Chief Executive of Openwork. He believes that in order to adapt to the IDR, IFAs are inevitably going to move upmarket, which is going to leave a gap in the mass market sector. How big of a problem will that be, Martin?
Well, I think it's a big problem if all IFAs feel that they can move up market. It is something that a number of them have done. It's something that I think most of them aspire to. The reality is, though, that market requires certain capabilities, skills and expertise, and I'm not sure all IFAs have it. So I think that some IFAs will find that they can't make that journey, and for those that can't, I suspect they'll have to find a home post-RDR in the restricted advice space.
Will there be enough advice out there to kind of cater for that sort of mass market need, sort of post-RDR?
Well, I think it's a very interesting question, because the reality is the way the regulations are set now, it actually raises the bar for simplified advice and restricted advice very high. That means that for those that can't make the journey up market to the top end of IFA, will struggle quite possibly even to make the grade for restricted or simplified advice. So if the regulations remain as they are, I think many will find it very difficult. And
you said that many IFAs that move up market, that try to cater to that sort of high net worth sector, that many will be doing that mainly because it's the only way to maintain an economically viable business. What are the difficulties in trying to continue to provide advice for that more sort of mass market sector?
Well, I think the reality will be that a mass market will be much more price sensitive. They're much less likely to be willing to pay fees. I don't think there's any research that I've seen that indicates that the average consumer is happy about paying a fee for financial advice. And although that is where regulation's taking us, I think it's where the market needs to go. I think most consumers aren't there. So at the upper end in the high net worth sector or in the mass affluent, then absolutely, I think they're comfortable with that. But I think the mass market are not there. So I think the consumer attitudes need to change as well as advisor attitudes in order for that mass market to get a fee-based service.
Restricted advice, the new badging that has been given under the IDR, you're not particularly keen on the way that it's been named. Why is that?
Well, I'm not sure who wants to sit in front of a client and present themselves as, hello, I'm a restricted advisor. I think it can be quite misleading. At the end of the day, the way it's been broken up between IFA and restricted advisor is much more about the advice that's given or the products that are offered as opposed to the advisor. So I think it could be quite misleading. So on one, I don't like the name. I think restricted advice is not a great name for a client. It could mislead. And secondly, I think the whole concept of having a restricted advisor is also misleading, because at the end of the day, it's the product that is restricted, not the advisor.
But you're more keen on the concept of simplified advice. You think that's an area where there could be potential sort of growth?
Yes, I think simplified advice is a great opportunity to have a relatively simple set of products, hopefully with a relatively low entry-level educational qualification, so that we can bring new blood into the industry. They can advise and essentially go through almost like an apprenticeship as a simplified in providing simplified advice, and then as they grow, as their career develops, they can move up to restricted or IFA. But I think as an entry point, I think simplified advice is a very good concept.
Sure. Of course, one of the big issues about the IDR is the kind of question about advisor numbers and how many people, survive the transition. Now, you're more optimistic than others about how many survive, aren't you?
Well, it's interesting whether I'm more optimistic or realistic. I think the reality is that this is a very resilient group of individuals. They're very entrepreneurial. They have very good client relationships. I think whatever the industry has thrown at them, whether it's depolarization, I think we have found historically they've come through it. So my view is that the majority of advisors who wish to remain in the sector will find ways to remain in the sector. Some, of course, will go. For some, it'll be the end of their career, and this might be a natural jumping off point. But I think the vast majority will find ways to work within the new regulatory environment, and I think the numbers won't change as much as some people are saying they will.
And what about those people that are kind of caught in the middle, that are, they're old enough that they're not looking towards a long career in financial services, but they're not ready to retire yet when the IDR comes along? How do they adapt if they don't have the time to study for the necessary qualifications? What can they do?
I think for those people that are knowledgeable, have experience, have good client relationships, wish to remain in the industry. I think it's up to the industry to find options and solutions for them to do so. Now, one may wish to move down a power planning route if you don't want to get qualified. You may wish to run down a non-advising practice principal route if you don't wish to get qualified. I think there are a number of options, but it's up to the industry to come up with those options and present them to the IFAs so that they can implement them post-RDR.
Excellent, Martin, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.